During the recent budget debate, the finance minister expressed his pride in their policy of hoarding the people's money in the national reserves. Take a listen.
We're proud of our commitment and successful efforts to build Jamaica's foreign reserve.
Neither of us is an economist, but I believe that hoarding is not only detrimental but advantageous to investors. But before getting into it, listen to the following words from a real economist.
You have brainwashed our academics and policymakers in developing countries for years, but it's changing. Because we have the East Asian examples, we have China. They are doing things that are totally contrary to everything that was taught to them in the textbooks. There is not one single thing in any economics textbook that China has actually practiced which anyone can refer to as the basis for its success. And I told them that if you think China is the only one that's going to do it, you're sadly mistaken. All the developing countries, one by one, are going to learn the secret. And the result of that is you're going to lose the standard of living that you have always enjoyed in the West.
In regards to economics, I totally agree with the Prof, but when it comes to waking up, he has not considered greed and corruption. Here in Jamaica, the parliamentarians have no interest in real change. When we apply logic and common sense, it is clear that today's economics are structured for the benefit of the West and detrimental to the so-called developing world. A great example is printing money. A general economic rule is that if a country prints money, the currency devalues. Otherwise, governments could endlessly print cash to pay their bills. But look at what happened during the COVID scam. The West printed trillions of dollars, euros and sterling, but it was our currencies that devalued. The Jamaican dollar depreciated 10% against the greenback instead of appreciating. Without a doubt, we have been screwed, and the national reserves are another example. Households are advised to save for emergencies. The richer you are, the easier it is to do. But if the poor are forced to save, they must rob proverbial Peter to pay Paul. The same applies to countries. The reserves should be an emergency fund, but with today's voodoo economics, they're seen as an investment or lending parameter. Under IMF agreements, poor countries are ordered to save, and the only way to do that is to cut public investment in roads, education, healthcare, etc., and redirect that money to the reserves. During the COVID-19 crap, there was around $3 billion US in the reserves, but instead of using it, a total of $670 million was borrowed from the IMF and the World Bank respectively. The minister should explain why creating more debt was beneficial, but add insult to injury, the IMF and the World Bank lend in full knowledge that corrupt regimes will simply misappropriate the funds. The Prof referred to China. A pillar of their rise was Chairman Mao's road building program. Roads are critical infrastructure. They are vital for trade, being the veins and arteries of a country. At the end of the day, the best farmland in the world is just land if you cannot get to it. But apart from our highways, the network is deplorable, even resulting in fatalities.
Residents in Dumfries, Portland are calling on the authorities to fix the road in their community. This following the death of a truck driver in the area on Tuesday who was pinned under the truck for hours. The ill-fated truck, which plunged 300 feet off the Dumfries Main Road in Portland up to 8 a.m. Wednesday, the body of the driver, Alphonso Thompson, was pinned under the crashed vehicle. Of note, the incident happened sometime after 4 on Tuesday. But firefighters and police were unable to do much because of the rain and poor visibility. The impact of the incident was made clearer at sunrise. The deceased driver was heading to make deliveries when his truck overturned. Residents complained that this was inevitable because the breakaway on the main road has worsened over time.
Personally, I'd call that manslaughter. Leadership is key. The Chinese road building program delivered a vibrant economy that generated money to plough into education, and the rest, as they say, is history. In Jamaica, on the other hand, the visionary PM He's building call centres and expanding tourism. Now, growing minimum wage industries perpetuates poverty and delivers wealth to investors, but Jamaica is not run for the people. Okay, so let's hear why the Minister believes hoarding is good financial management.
Madam Speaker, the level of foreign exchange reserves stands at 4.7 billion. This is more reserves than we've had at any period in the past, and it will soon pass $5 billion US dollars for the first time.
You don't save when inflation is rampant globally. 1,000 Jamaican dollars today has way less than 50% purchasing power than it did before the COVID-19 crap, and that is not exaggerated. A $350 loaf of bread is now $650. Natural gas is 50% higher.
Jamaica is a small island in a big world, and we have to import much of what we need, and we need foreign exchange to do it. An adequate supply of foreign reserves is a signal to suppliers at Jamaica that they will get paid. And Madam Speaker, that came in useful in the COVID pandemic when we lost $4 billion US dollars of foreign exchange inflows like that. Tourism brings in $3 to $4 billion a year. We went down to zero like that.
This is fiction. Firstly, foreign exchange receipts did not fall to zero. The vast majority of foreign exchange that enters the country is via remittances. And as you can see, it was 2.9 billion in 2020 and a record 3.5 billion the following year. Here's a graph he produced for his presentation. If the reserves were used, they would have declined, but they increased to a then record 4 billion US. Yet more proof that foreign exchange receipts did not fall to zero. He simply makes things up as he goes along. And tourism does not contribute 3 to 4 billion. The figure includes monies paid to hoteliers, airlines, cruise operators, etc. This is called tourism leakage and was covered in a previous video. But let me say this, if a mere 20% of tourism earnings enters our economy, we'd be bloody lucky. But instead of recognizing the danger of an alleged tourism-dependent economy and diversifying from it, the industry is expanding. When there is an hurricane, and we will be hit by one, tourism will take years to recover, whereas solar and wind-powered industries will be up and running within weeks. Now, does that sound like Jamaica is well managed?
Because some people say, you know, quite innocently, hey, we have all those reserves, why we can't just tap into it and use it and spend? I understand the question. But, Madam Speaker, it is those reserves that underpin the Jamaican currency. You notice how the Jamaican currency start behave all of a sudden, right? Because we have reserves backing it. If we were to do something like that, what would happen is that our currency would become very, very unstable, as it has been in the past. We'd have high inflation and the people would not benefit. You would think you're benefiting the people, but ultimately they would not benefit because it would make life more difficult. We have been there. That's the good thing about our history. We have been there. We know what it is like. And so we don't want to repeat the errors and mistakes, Madam Speaker.
He claims the reserves underpin the currency, resulting in its recent so-called stability. However, the data tells a different story. There has been a huge increase in the reserves since entering the IMF agreement in 2013. Here is a graph of the exchange rate over that period. Does it look like hoarding money is aiding the dollar? When we had just over $1 billion saved, we needed $99 to buy a buck. Now, we have $4.7 billion saved, but we need $155 to buy a buck. Now, applying his logic, the exchange rate should be below $100. I contacted the minister numerous times about the reserves, and this appears to be his indirect response. Now, I advocate for prudent investment, not spending, and there is a monumental difference between the two. But even though Clark has a doctorate in math, he cannot differentiate between investment and spending. Due to the fact that Jamaica has incredibly high electricity rates, a renewable energy investment pays for itself within a handful of years. When the Jamaica Labour Party came to power in 2016, if 500 million of the reserves was invested to solar and wind power all state-owned infrastructure, i.e. schools, street lights, police stations, etc., the investment would have paid for itself already. Not only that, the precious reserves would be intact, and well over 150 million US that goes to the energy supplier JPS every year would be available for capital investment. A child can work it out. Investing 500 million to stop spending over 150 million every year is common sense. He said we'd think we'd be better off. What does it mean? Investment in renewable energy projects would also create employment, deliver proper solid waste management and a better water service, and much, much more. And we need roads. They're not a luxury.
There are only 2 taxis that operate in the community of Comfort District in Clarendon. The others say driving on the roadway is too expensive.
Once upon a time, I usually take 15 minutes to reach our work. Now, I have to take 1.5 hours. It can't work. The road them bad. I tell you, say, patrol them deep.
It's been this way for years. And the residents say the current shape of the road does not allow for emergency transportation.
A particular young man lost his life a couple months ago because this road is bad.
We live back a God. A back a God run us on name, so they're in a business with we. Nothing at all. If somebody's sick around here, you can't reach up a hospital because you're most dead on your way. Because by the time you reach out on the main, so your name most dead. And if you are go dead.
The PM talks about productivity, but does not relate roads or health to it. Investment would strengthen the country, not jeopardize it as claimed by the finance minister. We would be significantly better off, and some people would actually still be alive. However, he thinks continuing to pay JPS and tripling the pay of parliamentarians and their colluding top-ranking civil servants and spending over 50 million on a new parliament building is better use of our money.
And something for the boys and girls, a new parliament building, which apparently is urgently needed to showcase national pride.
Yes, the parliament is on track.
Is that our priority, really?
It is a priority. I would quickly say to those who would want to say it is not a priority, the ability of our politics to function properly, to have the meetings for oversight, which we all complain about, to have the facilities to properly capture and record our debates, for example, to save those for posterity, to ensure that our members can conduct themselves appropriately. You know, and then of course we must think of our national pride. When we invite people to come to our parliament, the parliament must represent the dreams and aspirations. When you look at it, you must say, this is Jamaica.
But year in, year out, high levels of crime and...
You heard, urgently needed. I'm not going to comment anymore. The professor advised us to ignore today's economics, and without doubt, he is correct. Hoarding is bullshit. A transport network is critical and desperately needed. The money is available, and these projects will boost the economy and create employment. Jamaica is being subjected to voodoo economics, and it is moronic to allow it to continue unchallenged. Our money is being mismanaged on an epic scale. We must have a movement to get independents like myself into Parliament, because doing nothing is not an option. And you can start the process to get change by signing and circulating a petition in the description.